these things that I'm saying in Hollywood exist in religious circles, in politics, in the medical profession.
And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
You a grown-ass man. You gotta leave Diddy party like that. You can't even sit down in the car. You gotta drive all the way home, standing up.
Something about this story feels bigger than celebrity gossip, like a curtain twitching open on the industry's hidden undercurrents. Imagine this. Two men, long dismissed as difficult, suddenly sounding less like outliers and more like a silent warning the public was never meant to question. Katt Williams spoke in sharp, unsettling riddles. Terrence Howard, in a kind of quiet observation only someone who had seen it all could make, seemed to confirm the atmosphere people are saying has hovered over certain circles for years. Private invitations, strange rooms, A-list gatherings where phones allegedly disappeared and black SUVs rolled in after midnight, leaving behind the kind of silence that speaks louder than any statement. According to whispers online, these weren't just glamorous nights behind a carefully curated image, but echoes from the corridors where power moves in silence. And when Terrence finally spoke, something just doesn't add up anymore. But is it really just a coincidence that the same themes keep resurfacing again and again whenever someone refuses to play along? Then came March 2024, when federal raids on properties linked to Diddy sent the internet into overdrive, and reports described surveillance equipment, stacks of NDAs, and that now infamous detail about baby oil. His lawyer reportedly offered a retail store explanation, but when Costco publicly denied that version, the more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence.
You can't be so happy to change shit that you up your life. You know how many celebrities went to Diddy's house thinking they was finna dance? How does that feel? You a grown-ass man. You gotta leave Diddy party like that. You can't even sit down in the car. You gotta drive all the way home, standing up. Whew. Can't roll the window down. You roll the window down, that breeze hit that open hole and start blowing, and you start saying, 1,000 bottles of baby oil. It ain't that much ass in the world. Everybody know that. P. Diddy's dumbass lawyer said he probably got it at Costco. I didn't say it too much. Said I wasn't gonna do this. I was just gonna tell my jokes, get the up out of here. But 1,000 bottles of baby oil? It wasn't just what they found. It's what they didn't find. It was 233 cameras in that house. In one house. But what didn't they find? It wasn't one Bible in that. Wasn't no living plants in that motherfucker. Wasn't no vitamins. And no handcuff keys.
To some viewers, it sounded bizarre, almost absurd. To others, it felt like the pattern that keeps resurfacing no matter how hard they try to bury it. What if this was never just about one name, one mansion, or one headline? What if the biggest legends were trying to send a silent warning about the layers beneath the glittering surface of success? Hollywood sells the myth that talent alone opens every door, but stories the official narrative always seems to skip over suggest another system entirely, one built on access, compliance, and the shadows behind the spotlight. Terrence Howard's alleged refusals, repeated over time, have fueled the questions that refuse to die. Why now? Why him? And why are they hiding this? Reddit users have been digging into this for years, tracing old interviews, awkward pauses, and the silence between the headlines speaks louder than any statement. Behind every polished appearance sits the possibility of another story, a subtle gesture that history almost erased, a gaze that seemed to see through the polished Hollywood facade. And once you notice that pattern, why now starts to feel less like timing and more like design.
Number of producers coming to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing. And have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
He didn't bend, he didn't play to the room, and he didn't seem willing to trade conviction for comfort. Then, as opportunities appeared to narrow and public narratives turned colder, a watchful eye from the upper reaches of the game almost seemed to follow every step. And that is where this stops feeling like rumor alone and starts feeling like a map of whispers, one pointing toward what they don't want you to know. Behind the carefully curated image, the story starts to feel less like a career choice and more like a calculated crossroads. He stepped away from comfort, from safety, from the kind of superstar most would chase without hesitation. And people are saying that decision came with consequences far deeper than missed opportunities.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f*** you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody.
Imagine this. Headlines shifting tone overnight, narratives tightening like a script being rewritten in real time, and something just doesn't add up about how quickly credibility can be questioned. According to whispers online, it wasn't just coincidence, but the more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence, especially when the same patterns follow anyone who resists the system. Because speaking once is bold, but continuing after the pressure mounts, that's where the questions that refuse to die begin to echo louder.
They don't want him or me or people like us.
Yeah.
But now it's not necessary for us to stir up that hornet's nest unless we intend to get stung 1,000,000 times. I didn't understand that. They had to sting me 1,000,000 times.
Right.
I'm still not going to join, but I respect it a little more.
All right. How do you handle that? Because they put your name in the press with a lot of rumors and a lot of situations that they try to put on Katt Williams. Do you feel ever the need to I got to go defend this and put out a story about who I am? Or do you just let that kind of roll off your back when
Well, as you can see, I've let it all go for quite some time. And a lot of that is just based upon the fact that I don't really know how to complain because all of the people that I ever looked up to had to go through it too. So I know how much they talked about Martin Luther King, and I know what they end up doing to him. I know this same story about Jesus and a few of my uncles. So now I know that if your mouth is really, really big and you try to tell the truth for a living and you like to air people out, hatred is coming your way. I didn't know it was going to be this type of hatred, but I'm concrete in all things because of He who strengthens me. So that doesn't mean I always make the right decisions, but I am going to stand by what I stand for.
Katt Williams' words, often brushed off as chaotic or exaggerated, now linger differently in hindsight. The public was never meant to question the punchlines, but when reality starts to mirror the jokes, why now does it feel like those moments carried something heavier? What if those performances weren't just comedy, but shadows behind the spotlight, hitting at something deeper? When the 2024 raids dominated headlines, most focused on the surface details, but people are saying Katt saw a pattern instead, a chessboard where every move sends a message. But is it really just a coincidence that one figure becomes the center of attention while others stay silent in the background?
These things that I'm saying in Hollywood exist in religious circles, in politics, in the medical profession. If it's car theft and we're going to accuse you of having a carjacking ring, right? We're going to begin by bringing in people that we caught.
That's where the narrative shifts, where what seemed bizarre starts to feel like part of a larger design. The truth they buried, hiding in plain sight. Reddit users have been digging into this for years, tracing connections, revisiting interviews, noticing the silence between the headlines speaks louder than any statement.
They put the drugs in the baby oil. You thinking you getting a massage, you can't even get up. That's why God gave me eczema. I can't even use baby oil.
Because once you start recognizing the patterns, the layers beneath the glittering surface of success become impossible to ignore. In most industries, exposure leads to protection, but here, according to whispers online, it leads somewhere else entirely. A quiet distancing, a reshaping of public perception, a slow fade into the margins. And that's what they don't want you to know. Because if even one voice breaks through clearly enough, it forces everyone watching to ask the same unsettling question. What else has been hidden in plain sight this entire time?
Let's be very, very clear. It is possible that there isn't anything funnier than a guy in a dress. And if that's the case, then it might also be said that there's nothing funnier than a black guy in a dress. Okay, well, I watched all of my friends throughout my entire life be able to dunk a basketball, but not me. So everybody can't do everything. So, you know, some of us make choices. I think it's not a biggest choice for others. I'm saying at the end of the day, Kevin doesn't have to worry about what people are going to say about him wearing a dress because of the long line of dress-wearing people before him. So now we have Big Mama's house 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I've never seen Medea in a pantsuit. I think she wears dresses. So now I'm saying, why are we picking on poor little Kevin Hart? Because it was his turn next.
Okay.
Some of us are against the Illuminati, and we are against the Illuminati at our own detriment. When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them. End quote.
He didn't just lose roles, he lost momentum. And once the machine realized he wouldn't play ball, they rewrote the story. Suddenly he was unstable, hard to work with. The rumors spread faster than the truth ever could. And behind all of it, he carried the weight of things he wasn't supposed to know.
They don't want him or me or people like us.
Yeah.
But now it's not necessary for us to stir up that hornet's nest unless we intend to get stung 1,000,000 times. I didn't understand that. They had to sting me 1,000,000 times. Right. I'm still not going to join, but I respect it a little more.
All right. How do you handle that? Because they put your name in the press with a lot of rumors and a lot of situations that they try to put on Katt Williams. Do you feel ever the need to, like, I got to go defend this and put out a story about who I am? Or do you just let that kind of like roll off your back? When
well, as you can see, I've let it all go for quite some time. And a lot of that is just based upon the fact that I don't really know how to complain because all of the people that I ever looked up to had to go through it too. So I know how much they talked about Martin Luther King, and I know what they end up doing to him. I know this same story about Jesus and a few of my uncles. So now I know that if your mouth is really, really big and you try to tell the truth for a living and you like to air people out, hatred is coming your way. I didn't know it was going to be this type of hatred. But, you know, I'm concrete in all things because of he who strengthens me. So that doesn't mean I always make the right decisions, but I am going to stand by what I stand.
They start to look less like isolated moments and more like a pattern hiding in plain sight, the kind you can't unsee once it locks into focus. According to whispers online, insiders who've brushed up against these circles describe something far more structured than coincidence, a quiet rite of passage wrapped in velvet ropes and flashing lights. Imagine this, access granted not by talent alone, but by an unspoken understanding, a silence agreed to before the night even begins.
Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what Heath had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head. You know, but when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Now, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose.
People are saying that NDAs appear early for a reason, not as protection after the fact, but as a signal of what's expected. As something just doesn't add up when multiple voices, from assistants to security staff, all echo the same underlying theme. Behind the carefully curated image, obedience begins to look like the real currency, and the more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence. Because what if these moments aren't random at all, but part of the layers beneath the glittering surface of success? Then there are the moments the public brushed off as harmless entertainment. Kevin Hart stepping onto a stage in costume, framed as nothing more than comedy, nothing more than performance.
But is it really just a coincidence that shortly after, his trajectory seemed to accelerate into something unstoppable? The questions that refuse to die start circling here. Why do certain choices align so perfectly with sudden elevation? Meanwhile, Katt Williams, who once commanded the same spotlight, appeared to drift in the opposite direction. And people are saying that shift didn't happen by accident. According to whispers online, saying no doesn't just close a door, it rewrites the entire narrative around you. Suddenly, headlines shift tone. Stories the official narrative always seems to skip over begin to vanish, and the silence between the headlines speaks louder than any statement.
Things are handled when it's not intentional. When things go smoothly, but they seem chaotic, that means there was forethought and a plan. Somebody, even if it looks like, yeah, Janet Jackson just had a wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, there's no such thing.
Correct.
I don't care who you blaming.
I believe that. I believe that.
Somebody benefited. Yeah. So in all of these situations, there's a business involved and there's real money involved, and somebody's benefiting from this thing that looks like, oh, that just happened. Nah, no way. No way. It would be hard for a homeless guy to get into the Hollywood Bowl, let alone a homeless guy be able to rush the stage and actually.
So you're saying same for Dave Chappelle and this random homeless person. I thought the same thing. I'm like, how did he rush the stage? I've been to Hollywood Bowl. How do you rush the stage?
Look. This is the business. We're in the business where make-believe happens, where the job is to have something that costs 9 cents for us to make, and we sell it for $4.99 to you for a good deal. And it's okay that it costs us 9 cents. But in this business, the star is the commodity. These are real people, real lives. When you see things happen and you don't have all of the information, there is a business where they fiddle with the perception of the people. And that's part of the job. Back in the day, it used to be called propaganda. Now it's just called business. They don't say we got to smear the candidate. They smear them. Whoever made you is who is qualified to break you. That's the end of it. When they bought you and put you on that Fox show, it was because you were going to do this and only this. You'll never do that. As soon as you breach that, they done with you too.
Reddit users have been digging into this for years, pointing out how quickly perception can be reshaped when someone steps out of line. Because once the machine decides on a version of you, that version sticks, no matter what came before. And that's where it gets unsettling, because it suggests something deeper than fame or failure, a system that rewards alignment and quietly sidelines resistance. What they don't want you to know is how consistent that pattern begins to feel once you start connecting the dots. And if that pattern is real, then the final question lingers heavier than ever. How many others saw it too, but chose to stay silent?
What I'm saying is, in business, nothing is coincidental, or you will be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million and now don't have to talk to that artist or none of their crew, don't have to validate none of their contracts. Now only got to deal with the mama, only got to see her once a year, and it's over. And the money goes up and up and up. So they this $20 million guy, but they reaped $60 million in benefits.
Wow.
And they had some people from your city do it.
Wow.
I'm saying there's the good side and the bad side of these businesses.
They say the real decisions in Hollywood don't happen on stage or on camera, but somewhere far quieter, behind the carefully curated image where power is exchanged in ways the public was never meant to question. Saying yes, according to whispers online, was never just about a role or a moment. It was about stepping into a circle where silence holds more value than talent. Imagine this, a ladder everyone wants to climb, but each step comes with something unspoken, something people are saying you don't fully understand until you're already too far in.
I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything.
And something just doesn't add up when success stories start to look identical, polished on the outside, yet echoing the same hidden conditions beneath. Katt Williams didn't just resist opportunities, he challenged what they represented. And the more you look at it, the less it looks like coincidence that his path shifted so dramatically afterward. Because in a system like this, refusing to align doesn't just stall momentum, it rewrites your entire narrative. Suddenly, you're no longer seen as talented or bold, but difficult, unpredictable, someone easier to dismiss than to listen to. The questions that refuse to die begin right there. Why are they hiding this? And why do the same patterns repeat whenever someone steps outside the lines? According to whispers online, there are networks within networks, alliances that protect their own while quietly closing ranks against anyone who won't participate. And when Terrence Howard spoke, it wasn't framed like gossip. It carried the weight of years in the spotlight behind those knowing eyes, the kind of quiet observation only someone who had seen it all could make.
I understand what is worth doing for ratings. I understand what is worth doing when the industry is canceling one black guy. I know what happens when they are going to elevate another. And I know what happens when they don't care about either of them. This is how quarterbacking go. So the question is, hey, your quarterback just got sacked. Did we know we was fin to sack your quarterback? We absolutely did. It was a play, buddy. We've been rehearsing it, working it out, making sure that at some point, when you get to this level, we can make sure we knock you from a $20 million man to putting in the news that people won't hire you no more and your career is done. Yeah.
So you said it was a setup.
He didn't sound like someone chasing attention, but like someone describing the layers beneath the glittering surface of success. People are saying that once you cross certain lines, once you trade parts of yourself for access, there's no clean way back, and that's where the real cost begins to surface. But is it really just a coincidence that so many public figures show signs of strain after reaching the highest levels? The silence between the headlines speaks louder than any statement, and Reddit users have been digging into this for years, tracing moments where the facade seemed to crack just enough to reveal something deeper. What they don't want you to know is how consistent those moments begin to feel when placed side by side. Because this isn't just about fame, it's about the structure holding it together, the shadows behind the spotlight that only become visible when someone dares to step away. Katt Williams was laughed at, labeled, pushed to the margins, while Terrence Howard was quietly reframed in the public eye.
But now, as more pieces surface and more voices begin to question, why now feels impossible to ignore. What if these weren't isolated stories, but warnings echoing through the industry's hidden undercurrents the entire time? And if that's true, then the final thought lingers like a shadow that won't fade. What happens when the people who walked away decide to finally say everything out loud with nothing left to lose and no one left to answer to? Comment below with what you think is really going on. Leave a like if this gave you chills, and subscribe plus turn on notifications for more hidden Hollywood secrets.